Listen up. We are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. What are we here to do? We're here to promote the construction industry and really all blue collar life. We want everyone to know that it's the place to be. Whatever your dream life looks like, the house, the vacation, the car, the family, whatever that looks like for you, it's attainable in the construction industry. And if you're already in the industry, we want to share the expertise, the mentorship. We want to share the stories of other people's success so that it helps you go down your path to achieving whatever that dream may be for you. So I do two different formats. Sometimes it's just me talking about something that I'm going through, or I talk about something that everybody should know in the industry to find success in their career. And then other times I bring people in, which is what I did today. My expertise, just a reminder to everybody, is as a general contractor. I started out digging holes, sweeping floors, scrubbing toilets on job sites, the bottom of the barrel type stuff. And I've worked my way up through as an engineer, then a project superintendent, then a project manager, and now an executive. So my expertise definitely lies in the construction management side of things, but I love bringing in people in the trades to talk about how they got there and where they think they're going from here. So today we have Dustin Crosby. Dustin, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Fantastic. And for those who don't know, and I don't think I do this a lot, but when I have somebody on like Dustin, I have to point to their content right away, because Dustin has probably the most unique content out of any blue collar creator or influencer or whatever you want to call them, any blue collar person that I've ever met on social media. So Dustin, why don't you tell people where they could find you first?
So on TikTok, that's my bread and butter. I'm the Blue Collar Poet 633. Facebook, I just went with my personal and just changed it all, so it's still my name, Dustin Crosby. I've got my Instagram, Blue Collar Poet 633. Trying to break into the YouTube world. It can get hectic when you're in the trades and you got life going on, and trying to be a content creator and keep up with all the social media platforms. So, like I said, my bread and butter is the Blue Collar Poet 633 on TikTok. That's where I'm heavily at the most. I've got like 20, 30 hours a week screen time just on that app alone. But yeah, you can find me there. But Dustin Crosby, you look that up, Blue Collar Poet, if you just type that in, Blue Collar Poet, you'll find me.
Yeah. So obviously, if you haven't picked up on it, the fact that he's a blue collar poet is what makes him different. And if you want to feel the love, the hate, the ups and downs, and even maybe some humor or some nostalgia when it comes to being in the blue collar world, and somebody that may have grown up in the 80s and 90s, it's definitely something that you're not going to want to miss. So go check that out. Dustin, why don't you tell people, what you do today? Because I think you just had a little bit of a career shift, right?
Yeah, I did. So I recently, like first week of October, I got into the union as a carpenter. And so I'm currently at that. I'm on layoff at the moment. I go back actually tomorrow, back to a power plant. And if most people don't know, most of your union carpenters are scaffold builders. That's a pretty common theme that I'm finding out, where we build concrete forms, stuff like that. We do a bunch of other stuff, but the general consensus with a lot of the guys I'm running into a meeting, it's like, yeah, you're going to be a scaffold builder, which is fun. It's you need the scaffold builders to it's a support for other trades, you know. But yeah, so I've been doing that since October. Currently, did my scaffold 40 training not long ago. They hired me in as a journeyman just because my prior experience, in the past 20 years of, you know, I've got hazmat certifications, training, and I'm a heavy equipment operator in the Army Reserves. But for 6 years, I was in a squad where we were the vertical engineers, which is basically carpenters, masons, electricians. So I've got all that prior experience building pole barns in the reserves, and I was a dock builder at one point. So I was a little leery when the guy hired me in, my BA, was like, oh yeah, we'll put you in as a journeyman. I was like, oh wait, I want to earn respect. I don't have, I'm good at what I do and I can learn anything, but I was like, what the heck, I'll figure it out as I go, and I'll just earn my respect on the job and take whatever courses I need and go from there.
So what was it that made you want to do, or what were you doing before? Because you only just made this jump in the last couple months, right? So what were you doing right before when you looked at this opportunity and you said, you know what, that's it?
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny story. So I was working I was working for a local guy. I live in Kentucky, by the way, a small town. Like there's only 8,000 people in the whole county. So you have to drive, you know, a good distance to find some really good work. There's a lot of coal mines, rock quarries, stuff like that. But I moved here back in the summer, um, and I didn't realize it would be that hard to get a job, and so I kind of came here without a job. I had already put my 2 weeks notice down at my job in Florida. I was doing solar site work. And then, so I took the first job I could get really fast with my uncle. And so it was a local guy, but he subcontracts out of a lot of rock quarries and coal mines and different things like that. He's got welders, CNC people. He also owns a lot of homes. So I jumped in with that back in the summer. But when I was at the rock quarry, I was running a haul truck, just standard haul truck guys. That's mostly what we did in those rock quarries. Most people know, if you're familiar with rock quarries, your haul truck is kind of like your entry level guys. So for us being subcontractors, we'd get 3 months contract with a rock quarry, and we just go in there and run dirt for the operators. Well, long story short, uh, the guy that I worked for didn't have the best quality guys, so we had a reputation within these rock quarries of, not so good. And so I I I have not done the best at keeping my mouth shut on job sites. I've kind of been one of those guys that has gotten myself in trouble. And one of the dozer operators, and anybody that runs haul trucks in a rock quarry, they all understand what I'm saying, is that your dozer operators are frustrating. They can frustrate you. And so I didn't hold back sometimes. I kind of said a few things. Well, one day I said a little too much, and I brought up the fact that that rock quarry was violating some MSHA laws, and that put a target on my back. you know so they saw me doing lives on my TikTok here and there, so they found my TikToks, and they saw that I was making a few TikToks while driving, which is against safety law. So, and
Definitely.
then my one night I came in the break room, and the dozer operator and the lead man for the rock quarry was sitting there, and they were like, because I said something about the dozer operator being on his phone, and he immediately saw me, and he's like, "How are you going to complain about us being on your phone or on our phone? You're on your phone all the time." And of course, run my mouth, and I'm like, "Well, if you don't have pictures, you don't have proof." And so they found my TikTok, saw that, went to my boss, and I thought I deleted them all, which I didn't. Anyway, long story short, my boss is like, that rock quarry don't want you there no more. I'm gonna have to fire you. So I got fired for making TikToks. And which I laugh about it now, but and that was on a Friday, and I was actually getting dressed to go. My daughter's homecoming queen, so I'm sitting there getting dressed, shaving, and I'm seeing my boss call, and then he texts me, and then he called me again, and I was like, I gotta answer this. And that's when he fired me. So I went to my daughter's homecoming with like all these thoughts, like, great, man, I'm fired. Like, I had just worked there for 3 years. Um, but I was like, no big deal. I've got experience. Like, it was I made a mistake. I should have known better. I should have kept my mouth shut, really. Um, but I'm like, no problem. Monday, I was driving home from my daughter's, called up the people within the Army Reserves. And side note for anybody that's listening about Army Reserve, the National Guard Army Reserve is a great opportunity to do, serve your country on the side while still working a civilian job. So
Sure.
there's a lot of things I probably won't get into, but one of the benefits is they there are certain people within the reserves and National Guard that it's their job, their full-time job, to find you a job. So I knew I had that at my fingertips, so I called him up and was like, hey, what's available in the area? And he mentioned Union, the local hall there in Paducah. So I was like, okay, cool. Got off the phone, called them up. They said, yeah, we're taking applications. I drove straight there, put in an application. He called me the next day, had an interview set up Wednesday. I was on the job Thursday. So I was fired on a Friday and back at work on a Thursday.
Look at that. So there's a couple things that I want to highlight there. Before I go back to what was going on in your mind and one of the highlights of your daughter's life, um, would you say that you're in a better job now than you were before you got fired?
100%. I mean, it was like so with union, there's scales as whether you're journeyman or apprentice that you can make. So some your lower scale is going to be um now here in Kentucky, and I don't even mind saying it. Like, I'm not big on telling people what I make, but for the sake of the podcast and people listening, for the Kentucky area, I think the lower scale is like almost 29 bucks an hour, and then your top scale is 39. So depending on what type of job that you're working on, you can make a variety, a range of that pay.
Right.
So
Well, and
from
it's union, so it's public information. So it's not like you're sharing,
right, right,
anything
right, right.
personal.
Yeah, you can find out what a journeyman makes for sure without me telling you. Um, so from the highest scale from where I was making there, I made like a $15 an hour increase. And it was only like a temporary, like I knew I was going to be, looking for work eventually. I just kind of had to take that really quick. But any of those
Sure.
people in construction, if they're at a job where it's not the best and they know they want to apply somewhere else, they know the struggle that you can get caught in a rut of just being tired and going to work, and you kind of just get in that routine, and you really don't look for a job as hard as you would if you didn't have a job. So them firing me kind of lit a fire under me to really get after it and start making those calls that Monday, because I had been kind of already looking for work a month prior to that. So it definitely in a better place for sure.
So it's funny because you pretty much hit the nail on the head with where I thought you were going to go with that. And what I would say is, a lot of people would kind of wallow in self pity and not really know what to do. And I think there's a lot of people that are scared to put themselves out there, to
Yeah.
whether it's create content or really just serve a purpose in any kind of way that's abnormal or not the average, right? And
Right.
when you do those things, you're kind of shining a light, right? And that may, and again, maybe it's God's way of doing it, but that may push you into something that's better for you than what you're currently doing now. And
Yeah, 100%.
it might hurt. It might feel like you got, thrown down on the sidewalk and you scrape your knee. Uh, but maybe that was because a bus was about to come by, right? And maybe sometimes it's about pushing you off, making you jump because you would have never done it yourself, or you needed a little push, right? So look
Right.
at you. You're doing this content, and like I said, I think it's great. I think it's very unique, and it's has a very positive impact on anybody that's watching it, especially that's already in the blue collar world. But look where it landed you. Now, what I'm interested in is what was going on in your head when you're probably trying to hold it together and act like nothing's wrong as your daughter's the homecoming queen. And she's like, obviously, probably having a very happy night, highlight of her life up until this point. And you're like, holy crap. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills.
Yeah. Well, it might be a lengthy story, but to answer your question, I wouldn't do it justice if I didn't give you the full backstory, and
Let's do it.
I'll try to make it quick. But so a week prior to that, so like I said earlier, I moved to Kentucky from Florida in the summer, and then kind of took the first job. So finances were kind of already a little tight. I mean, we all know like you can make good money, but things happen in life. And sometimes you got things out of your control, and finances, it just happens, right? So they were already kind of a little tight at this job. I was making a lot less than I was used to with the solar site work. Um, so I wasn't getting behind, but just things were mentally already starting to build. But I was saving a bunch of money. I still had a lot of my belongings back home in Florida. And so a week before the homecoming, I was trying to make the decision, do I go ahead and go back home, spend the money on a U-Haul, the plane ticket, all that stuff, the travel to go get all my belongings and bring them here to my apartment, or do I just keep waiting? And I just finally made a decision. I was like, I need to go get all my stuff and have it with me, and burn the bridge, so to speak, back home. Like, so that way, if anything goes wrong, I'm not like, well, because it's always been easy for me to fall back, to go back home and get good work back in Florida and be around family and support. So I was like, no, I'm burning the bridge. I'm getting all my belongings. I'm coming up here, and I'm just gonna make it happen. So I had spent almost all my money that I had to go move. So when that day I got fired, not only did I get fired, like I had just spent all my money to get all my belongings up here. So that was my first thought. And the second thing to add to this is, um, so one of the videos that I had forgot to delete, because my boss had asked me a couple days prior, like, "Hey, you just got to delete all the videos," and I thought I did, but with some of your social medias, you get confused of what videos where, and
Mhm.
and some of it's way back there that you forgot about. Well, one of the videos, we were on lunch break, and my uncle was kicked back in the haul truck, taking a nap, and so not only did my boss fire me, he fired my uncle.
Ah,
And so as I'm driving to my daughter's, like I said, as I was getting dressed to go to the homecoming game, my boss calls and fire me. Well, he also called my uncle to fire him. So I get a phone call from my pawpaw telling me that come get all your stuff. You're no longer welcomed here. Like, and he's like, I hope you're happy with your videos, because he's been the biggest critic about my social media platform out of anybody. I mean, you want to talk about a negative guy? Like, every time he would see me, like, how's your videos doing? How much have you made? Blah, blah, blah. So he hated the fact that I was trying to pursue a dream and write a book. I mean, I won't get all into all the stuff he said to me, but let's just say he was a huge Debbie Downer in my life about social media, and just a big naysayer. And he's the one man that's been in my life my entire life, taught me how to hunt, fish. He was the deacon. I always looked up to him. He's my only living grandparent today. So that really hit hard, man. I was okay with getting fired somewhat, because I knew I'm like, I was positive enough to know, like, hey, I'll find a job. I'll be all right. It'll be all right. It'll,
sure.
it'll, it'll work. Because it's not the first time I had a struggle like that where I made it past and was okay. But that really hit hard. So I'm going to see my daughter. So that was very emotional, that my grandfather just basically disowned me. And when he's the kind of guy, like, people were like, well, this, maybe this could, like, no, y'all don't know my grandfather. Like, when he says something like that, he means it, and he'll stand on it forever. He'll go to his grave. Um, and he's got cancer. You don't know if he's going to pass away tomorrow or a month from now. So I had that on my mind too. And I was upset that my uncle was fired. I felt bad for him. I didn't know about the money. So to now, you kind of hear the backstory of all that. The emotion I was feeling, it was tough, man. Like, I was wanted to be there and experience that for my daughter. Like, I remember walking across the field with her, and I had to fight back tears, like, because I was proud, but I was also like, golly, man, like, what is what is going on in my life, man? All I'm doing is just trying to make it in the world as a single dad that's been through it, and just trying to work and be honest, and overcome some past addictions and things like that, and do the right thing. And now I got and mind you, the town I'm living at, my grandfather is the only family I have here. He's the only person I know here. So that it was a lot. And if you go on my page, and I pinned it as my third pin on my TikTok, and it's I actually read that poem outside of my ex-wife's house where my daughters live. And so that video has, if you listen to it now, you can understand my emotion, where I'm coming from. Um, but that's one of my favorite poems I ever wrote. And I kind of wrote it with my pawpaw in mind, about that old timer blue collar man. Um, but Yeah, you could kind of see my emotion in that video, and I think that's why that sound did pretty well. I think there's like 30 people that use that sound for a video. Um, but
You know, there's a few things that, man, I could go a million different directions with this right now. Um, was it the poetry and the writing that kind of helped you organize your thoughts? Like, how did you must
yeah,
have found a way to give yourself grace. And a lot of people that listen to this, and I told you before that we started here, there's been a lot of people on the podcast that feel shame, depression, anxiety because of the mistakes that they've made and because of the way that affects other people. Myself included, right? Like I've made huge mistakes that
right.
have affected, my now wife and my father and my family and all these things. And, I definitely know what it's like to feel like you let everybody down. Right. And
Yeah.
even though, you had the best intentions. So talk to me about that. Is grace the word that you were able to find for yourself? How'd you find it?
Well, definitely everything throughout my life since like 13, whether I was living right or living wrong, I've always fell back on prayer, and talk to God. So, like when you said grace, like that's obviously been my rock that I fall on no matter what, whether I was woke up hungover and regretted all my decisions the night before. It was always, I was like, Lord, help me through this. So that was number one that kind of was my go-to, like, okay, here we go again. I trust you. It's gonna be okay. Like if all else fails, I still have, you to depend on, and it's all right. But the second thing was obviously I was there with my kids, so I had them. Um, it was the pride of hearing my daughter when they announced, and Emily Crosby, the homecoming queen. And I don't know if you've ever been to one or can remember. They kind of they give the kids are able to write like something about themselves, and so my daughter wants to go on to be work as a nurse and do stuff like that. So there was a lot of pride, like, and to see my daughter in her gown and the tiara and all the kids there were some young little girls that would walk up to her and like, "You're so beautiful," and "Can I get a picture with you?" And so my daughter, this all of us dads, we hate this, but she's dating a kid, but I couldn't be more proud of the kid she chose. He's a great athlete. He's I'm gonna feel bad if she listens to this, but I forget the position he plays, but he's a great leader. He's a great kid. He's going to be an EMT. His dad's an EMT. Um, just a great kid, man. Really, really great kid. And after everything was said and done at the game, I took them both out to eat. And that was another hard thing. I didn't say nothing to my daughters until towards the end. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I was like, man, I got to take them out. And that made me proud. Like, you got the homecoming king and the homecoming queen, and I'm have the honor to be the one that gets to spend the after party, so to speak, with him and take him out to eat and get to know him. So as the emotions were being processed in my head, there was things like that that just reminded me, like, hey man, like there's some good things to continue to fight for. Like these are your things to keep pushing for, to not let things get you down. And that regardless of what life throws at you, like as a man, and especially blue collar, we all been there, like where whatever is going on, we look to our kids and we're like, that's why we fight. That's why we continue to grow to be men of character and integrity, and not downward spiral, like you said, to keep you from downward spiral. So definitely the kids, the grace. And then that poem, actually what we talked about earlier, was going through some of your old poems or and regurgitating it. That was actually an old poem that I had set down that I really, really liked. And it was one that I actually did at the rock quarry that I had to delete from my TikTok. So I was like, well, let me reword it and add some stuff to what's going on right now, and then speak it. And that did help. I went out back and I sat there, and as I was reading this poem to myself and kind of editing it, it was a great reminder, because in the poem I said, the blue collar man, like he'll push through the pain. Or no, I said, when life tries to shake him, he's solid to the core. When the workload is heavy, he'll push through the pain and he'll come back for more. And so even as I was reading or recording the video for the TikTok, it was like I said, now when you see that video again, you'll be like, you'll understand that the voice that was coming out of me was coming from a place of that right there alone pushed me. I was like, yes, yes, man, keep going, you know? But yeah, definitely the poetry helped.
Do you have an Instagram?
I do, man. It's probably the worst following. Like,
Well, because I
nobody
want to take
follows
that and
me.
I want to post it and I'll make you a collaborator and give you credit on it. That's where I have my strongest following. I think I have heard that and I think it's important. You know,
Thanks, man.
just to tell you how much I align with that. And I'm at the other end of the spectrum when it comes to raising kids. My daughter's 18 months or 20 months old now. And her name is Grace for that
Yeah,
reason.
my youngest
Right.
her middle name's Grace.
It's there you go. It's you know, and there's a lot of days, even though I'm, you know, on a good trajectory and I'm on a good path, and it's like stacking up wins and momentum, where I got to pick her up and remind myself why we decided to name her that. So, um, and listen, I just had somebody on the podcast yesterday who was talking about a lot of trauma and shame that he had as a failed husband, and we talked about journaling and kind of writing things down and just organizing thoughts. And I think as far as blue collar people go, the only thing that anybody writes down is measurements or stock lists, you know, to
Yeah.
to go to the supply house, but
Or
or maybe
JSA, trip,
the
slips, and falls.
or the coffee order, right, right, for everybody on site. But
Yeah.
you know, it definitely helps to write. You do it in, you know, an artistic way, which a lot of people just can't do, especially the way that you do it. But I do think that it helps to kind of get words out of your head, put them on paper, and just kind of acknowledge, and then even go back to some of just the good things that you have in life. And if those are written down somehow somewhere, you know, I've made it a habit of myself to write down things that I'm grateful for and
Yeah,
go back to it
that's a good habit.
when I need it.
That is a
So,
great habit.
all just super important things, especially a lot of guys doing, you know, in the world that we're in that struggle with that stuff. No, and kind of a PSA: job site pictures or any kind of work site pictures, you got to be careful. And I'm not to make you feel bad, but
No,
in a
dude.
business
It's funny to me.
in a business sense, you know, I work for one of the biggest GCs in the country. We're top 10 ENR, $15 billion this year, and
Nice.
people are hyper. I don't get that 15 billion. I get,
Right.
yeah,
No, I get what you're
I
saying.
get my salary. I do good, but not that good. But not only are we hyper protective and uh, I don't know what the word is, but like you can't just take content and post it. It's actually a considerable offense because if you capture somebody without a hard hat in the background, that's a problem. And
Right.
of the, you know, if they put up 100 things for pictures for content that they want to use for social media or any kind of branding or any kind of whatever commercial, whatever, um, a lot of them get shot down because the safety department has to review it first, and they are always finding like smallest safety violations in the background, and they can't have that. Addition to that, when you're in construction specifically, um, the contractors have to sign NDAs with the client, and they may require you to have written permission from the client, i.e., if you're building something for Google, just a company that everybody knows,
Right.
and you post a picture and people can figure out where you were, the company's getting sued, and then you're probably getting sued personally. So just so everybody knows, because
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people don't know that. Um, talk to me about Debbie Downers, man. I have a lot of experience with this myself. Uh, and it's always like you said, it's from the people you either are closest to, maybe respect the most, look up to the most, have the most love for. Maybe it's a grandparent, a parent. Sometimes it's your best friends. You know, how do you deal with that, and how do you process that? Because I think it's one of the things that can you know, oppress people in what they want to do.
Yeah. No, that so um I've always I've been a pretty friendly guy. I've had, I've got my circle of friends and stuff like that. But I've moved a lot also. But from an early age, like when you're talking about writing and journaling, like guys to try to do it, I've always gravitated towards being that lone wolf, so to speak. And I don't really like using that word because like nowadays everybody's trying to, you know, alphas and sigmas and who's this and like what's your archetype
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
male.
Alpha wasn't good enough, so they had to come up with something even more,
Yeah.
rare and
But
elite.
but you know, but that's the only way I know how to strike. Like, um, I've just always been different, and but it's okay. You know, who was it? Socrates said, "Know thyself." You know, you gotta, or one of those dudes. You know who you are, inwardly, and just accept that. So, obviously, as you're a teen, you kind of struggle with where you find your place and this and that. But as I got older, I've just accepted, like, you know, I am, especially in the construction field, like, um, now I do cut up, I have fun, like I've had my wild and stuff like that. But for the most part, like I've always been a reader. I've always like writing to me is like I have to do it like I would have to breathe. So to me, even if it's just random stuff, I'm always hearing stuff in my head. So I said all that to say I don't have a big circle of like influence to hear people come at me. Um, and I just kind of keep to myself for the most part. Obviously, you know, you heard the story of my pawpaw, so he's been a downer, and then I've had, I would only say one other family member, and I wouldn't say they were a downer, Debbie Downer so much, but over time, if you're pursuing so like, so I have a dream to write a book. I have since I was a kid. It's been one of my biggest uphill battles of self doubt. Um, like it's been insane the amount of struggle that I have faced against my own self. You know, I have been almost like my worst Debbie Downer, where the voices I hear is ridiculous, and I'm just recently been starting to realize like, well, just wait a second, Dustin, like you're not the best writer right now. Yes, you need to learn and grow, but quit telling yourself that you know all these things. So I've kind of been my biggest Debbie Downer. But as you do pursue things like to write a book and you start to speak maybe big things like I'm gonna write this, I'm gonna do this, you will hear from especially the close people, because for the most part, if you tell people you don't know, they just don't respond back, or it's easy to kind of brush that negativity aside. But and they might not come out like, you know, very like it's not gonna, you're not gonna pick up on it right away that they're kind of down on what you're doing. It's gonna be just little hints like, you know, what? Well, you need to focus. You know, they kind of deter you the other way, and then especially as you make progress, then they're like, oh, wait a second, like he's not giving up on this. Like as much as he's saying he's going to do it, and it's taken him a long time, he's not giving up on it. So then what happens is like they kind of just back off in their conversation with you, and you know what I mean? Like they're not as uh you know, when you say something. So what I've learned with the Debbie Downer and just in life in general is just focus on what you're doing and just try not to even tell nobody. Like now for me, as
Yeah.
somebody who's
Work in silence. There's something to be said for working in silence. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Sometimes that's what you got to do to protect and control all the feedback that's coming in your head and just deal with your own feedback. Cause like you said, that's tough enough. What goes on in between your own ears.
yeah. And then I'll just say this to end it, like, because I've had a few family members, because now with a book writer, somebody is trying to, you know, put a book out there, whether you're a songwriter or whatever, your goal is, and I don't care what anybody said, like your goal is for many people to get it. I mean, I don't want to write a book and sell 100 copies, you know. That would be cool. I'd still be happy with that, and I could die a happy man saying I accomplished my dream. But at the end of the day, my vision is to take the book somewhere else. So obviously, marketing, you have to market that you're a writer. So that's where the
Sure.
social
Yeah.
media come in. So I bring it up from time to time, and I had a cousin like kind of put me down, like, again, like you're saying, family. He's like, you know, don't just, talking about it, just do it, So sometimes when people say something, they're not going to understand your method to where you see yourself going, and you just got to like just put it to the wayside. Like I've mastered. I would say I master. Um I wouldn't say master. Let me rephrase that. I've
That's okay.
gotten
You're pretty good though. You gotten used to it.
I've gotten really good at not letting, and if you're not good at it, just start posting on social media. You'll either learn to get good at putting aside the negativity, or you'll quit altogether. So yeah, people that say stuff now, it doesn't bother me. It's me. It's some voice in here that's the biggest naysayer that I have to fight.
Yeah, listen, I can tell you this again. Same thing for me. Like when I started this platform, to this day, I always have people that are kind of naysaying and like, well, what's the end goal? Like, what are you doing that for? Do you have the time to do it? You're wasting your time. You should be focusing on other things. Um, Even as I've come up in my career before this even happened, I had a lot of people, telling me I forgot where I came from, and that, that famous line
Right.
that a lot of people get. And I think it's just a sign, you should expect that. There's zero people that have been successful in anything or have been fulfilled in any kind of way in life that didn't overcome that resistance. Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to the young people, expect it. It's coming. It's just a sign that what you're doing, there's something better for you on the other side of it. So you got to get through that resistance. Right. And
Yeah.
one thing that I would say to you, I don't know if you know, have you read any of Matthew McConaughey's books?
Matthew McCon no. I've listened to a few of his, uh, I'm a big YouTube. I'll go to YouTube and watch, that's my education center, so I've heard some of his talks on YouTube, which are amazing, but no, I haven't read none of his books.
So here's what you're going to do. And I'm going to get a royalty for telling you this. I'm just kidding. but his most recent book called Poems and Prayers, he basically wrote a whole book in poem format. Every page or two or three is a
Really?
different poem. And I think if you did that for the blue collar world, that's your that's your book right there.
Yeah, and that
I highly recommend you pick that up.
yeah, dude, I'll have to. I've got like 6 that's one of my struggles too, is reading, like, um I am not a fast reader, and so I have like 5 books right now that
Hmm.
I'm in between. So once I've learned over the years, because I've read for, a long time, is that once I'm down to where I'm only working on 2 books, then I buy some
Yeah.
more. But if I've got 4 or
So
5, I wait.
do it. So here's the other good thing, and I would recommend this to anybody. I also read his book Green Lights, which is amazing. It's a bunch of his, life story. It's his whole life story going like this, him finding the way down the path and just seeing green lights. And he tells just a million stories about how he became, from birth to who he is today. But um, with Matthew McConaughey, you can listen to it on audio, and it's way better than anything you're going to read because you're listening to him read the book.
Yeah.
And he's just doing it in only the way that he can, right? Like
Yeah,
only the way that he
only
can
he can
speak
do.
with like just the coolest dude in the world. And it feels like he's like right across the table from you. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
So I definitely recommend it on audio. It's like $9 or something like that. And
Yeah.
I think I listened to it in like 2.5 hours over 3 days at the gym or something
Yeah, I
like
do
that.
a
And
lot of
it was
audiobooks
really good.
because, driving to work a lot of times,
Sure.
because I drive 3.5 hours to my unit for the Army Reserve, and then my daughters are like 4.5 hours away, and then I drive an hour and a half to work. So audio or podcast in my car, are my go-to, except in the morning, I try to
Mhm.
hype myself up with music, like, and get
Yeah,
woke
yeah,
up.
yeah. Get jacked up. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I think so. I think that'd be a good book for you for,
Dude, I'm definitely gonna
just
look
maybe,
into
maybe some
probably,
inspiration and, give you some direction on where you might go. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
and
know if
some
you already had
inspiration.
something in mind, but it might be something that might maybe changes your mind. It was super cool. So,
Yeah, I appreciate
um,
it.
so I want to take a step back because you said something that I want to hone in on. You've moved around to a lot of places. You've been in Kentucky, Florida. I think I saw on the list Illinois, Alabama, Georgia,
Yep.
maybe 6 or 7 states on there, right? And you
Yeah.
probably had to find employment in every single one of them. And you're in a job now where you're at best you're still honeymooning, right? Meaning that
Right.
it's all good. It's all good because you're still there and it's all fresh and it's all new and it hasn't gotten, mundane, or you haven't MF'd anybody yet. Which, oh, by the way, what you said about you not being able to keep your mouth shut, I would say 9 out of 10 people that have been on this podcast have said the same exact thing. But when you get to a new job or when you get to a new place, whether it was, 15, 20 years ago when you started out, or it's, this October and this month right now, what are you consciously doing? Like you're probably consciously doing something to try to create the right perception for yourself. So what are you consciously doing that, other people who are trying to get their first opportunity in a blue collar job, what should they be doing?
Right. So obviously, hopefully not just as men, women too, but as men, there should be you should be evolving and changing. So what I did maybe years ago, I try to do, you find out what works, what doesn't work. And every scenario for me is a little different because sometimes I go into a different job where and that's been a challenge for me because I have not went and got diagnosed for any kind of like mental thing or dyslexia. Like I know there's a lot of stuff going on with me. Like again earlier, Socrates, know thyself. So I know and accept, and so learning new things is always a challenge. So it's almost like I've had to start over. Like I don't even know. It's been too many times I can count. Luckily, carpentry, tile work, certain things are more of my niche. So when I go into those, there's a lot I already know, but there's also a lot I don't. Like I never built scaffolds until, October. So one of the things I'm trying to do now, and it don't always work. Sometimes it's not the best. And this is just me. I'm weird. I'm different. But I try. I've learned this. Don't go in to anywhere, regardless of your skill set, telling everybody what you know. Like, first of all, they don't care. If you've done this 20 years, they don't want to know that, if you've got a certificate in that thing, obviously your foreman, whoever hired you on, they're going to know that because they saw your resume or whatever, so they're going to know certain things. But when you get in with your crew and you're with your male or female, the guys and girls you're working around, nobody cares to know what you know. So just because I made those mistakes sometimes, like, and because then what happens is if you're unfamiliar with certain little things that you made it seem like you did know, you're going to get called out on it, and people aren't going to like that. And another thing is that I don't do no more is because I've done a lot of trades. I've learned everything that I've ever been into. I've ended up figuring it out and been efficient at it and done pretty good. And I can hustle with the best of them, physically. So I've gotten sometimes a little overconfident, a little cocky too much at the beginning. So when I'm with these guys, don't tell them that you can become the best employee and better than anybody there. Don't say that right out of the gate. That never has went well with me. I've learned my lesson with that. So normally I'm getting at a point is when you go into these places, I just try to show up on time, listen as if you're learning it for the first time. Just be there on time. Do the best you like. Pay attention to what they're asking. Like if they say, "Hey, we're going to be at such and such," um, and if you've already been in the field, you should know certain things. Like bring a hard hat. Even if they have a hard hat to give you, bring your hard hat. Bring whatever you have that they might use. Because even if you don't use it, they're like, "Oh, okay, this guy brought his own hammer or he's got his own work gloves." But you know, we offer our own. Here you go. The little things stand out. So I try to be prepared with what I know, already know. The basics of this stuff, and then pay attention. Listen to your guys. And again, even if you know this stuff, just try your best to humble yourself. act like, you're kind of hearing some of this stuff for the first time, you know, and then let your work speak for itself, and don't be afraid to go through maybe 2 weeks. Cause again, my cousin used to say this when we worked together. He's like, me and you, it's like a marriage as partners working. Think of
Yeah.
it as a marriage. We're going to go through ups and downs. And he goes, we have to learn each other's personalities. So you're on this new site with new personalities. You don't know what this guy's been through, what he's dealing with currently, or the lady, so you don't know anything that's going on. So just try to read the room, understand your guy that you're working with, and don't take things personal as you're working through your first 2 weeks. Because I've always found, for the most part, now I don't, you're not going to mess with everybody, but for the most part, a month into it, you're going to start to be catching a groove with the guy you're working with, and he's going to be more receptive to help you out and teach you things if, like I said, you come in a little more humble, you know like maybe you forgot something, or you struggle with this, and he's like, hey man, it's this way. But if you come in all like, I know this, he's going to be like, he's going to throw you to do something, and then you're going to be like, hey man, can you help me? He's like, oh, I thought you knew. I thought, I thought blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so you're going to create friction. So the best thing is just be humble, and do your best to pick up, because you will learn new stuff, and it's new environments, and you know what I mean? So just be humble. I just try to be humble.
So that's a big one, right? I had a clip that went viral a while back, and it was a guy, and I asked the same exact question, and he said the same exact thing, but from an owner's perspective. And he's like, "Stop telling me about what you know, because if you tell me you know, then I'm not going to fucking tell you the right way, right?"
Right.
But it's also an opportunity, and I don't know if you realize this, but this is how I see it, and this is how it's always worked for me. When you make somebody feel like they're an expert by asking them questions and looking
Yeah.
and putting them in that position, it puts them, just as you just alluded to, in a mentorship role. They're more likely to help you, to watch out for you. And anybody that makes you feel like an expert, you're going to like them. You're going to want to be around them, and you're going to
Right.
want to, you're going to want them to look good too. So it's always a good thing. It's always a good thing to do, right? And when I tell people, there's three things that I tell people, especially if they've never been in construction before. When you're interviewing somebody, whether it's construction management or a trade, all they're trying to figure out are three things: if you're humble, or if you have humility, which is exactly what you just said; if you got the work ethic, which you showed them by showing up on time. That's something that you need zero skill or experience to do, is show up on
Right.
time, which is 15 minutes early, and to be eager to learn, or just to be eager to be there, right? So
Right.
you do that by asking questions. You do that by at least making it known that you're trying to retain the information, right? And you're not asking. There's no such thing as a dumb question. But if you ask it a fourth, fifth, and sixth time, and you're still screwing it up, and you're not retaining it, then okay, well then maybe it's not a dumb question, but maybe you should be doing something else. Maybe they should move on from you.
Right.
And lastly, and I meant to say this at first, but you mentioned the environment. I've built all over Canada and all over North America. You will get on job sites where, just because you did it, XYZ way in Florida, you go up to Kentucky, they do it differently.
Right.
Especially the other direction. Usually when you do it up in the north and you go south, they do it a totally different way. They do it at a totally different pace. And if you go in there thinking that you know it all because, I'm this, hot shot from, well, like when I moved down from New York and Boston down to Florida, the last person they wanted to hear about how it was going to go down, or that I knew it the right way, was from me, right? They didn't want to
Yeah.
hear it
Oh
from
yeah. Yeah. I grew
from
up.
a
I know
Yankee,
what you mean.
from a Yankee, right? Like, I'm a Boston guy, so Yankee hurts me. But and it was funny, the other thing that you said about telling people that they're going to basically be the best, employee that they've ever had. And like, first of all, there's that famous expression, if somebody has to tell you how good they are, then they're probably not that good. But there's a
Right.
famous story where Tom Brady said that. You don't have to know, be into sports to know who Tom Brady is, but he told Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, the first day that he got there, that he was the best decision that the franchise had ever made. And yeah, okay, that worked out for Tom Brady, but it's probably not something that you want to say,
Yeah.
to Joe, the contractor.
Yeah. Well, even, and so the people I said it to were the guys I was working with, and you know what I mean. Like and but I learned it because I said it to two people at two different jobs, And it finally clicked on the second person. I was like, wait a second. Like, it's it's like an automatic, I don't know, like e- now for me, sometimes if I hear a guy saying it, I could may interpret that as like, okay, man, this guy's really, you know, confident. Like, that's cool, man. He's gonna be a
Yeah,
good
right.
worker. But
Yeah.
most people are gonna take that as offensive because and I learned this, they may have a friend on that job that they respect. It's one of the best. So to them, they're hearing you say that, hey, and the one kid, his dad was on the job. His dad was a supervisor. So in
Right.
essence, I'm telling him, I can be better than your dad. So
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean? You're not going to
I know
make
exactly
friends.
what you mean.
You're not going to make friends like that.
Definitely not. Listen, man. So we're coming up on time, right? I try not to go over an hour. I
Yeah.
don't want to rush this because I think this is really important. But I'd love to ask you about, you've probably been in what, 15, 20 years doing this type of stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. I'll be 39, February. And I went to my carpenter trade school at 18. So pretty much 20 years.
Okay. And if I'm doing the math correctly, you probably became a father in your early 20s.
Yep. 21.
And you were, I think you used the phrase single father a few times. So
Yeah.
tell me, talk about that as much as you're comfortable with that story and what that was like. Because a lot of people talk about, the inability to be a family man and to be there for your family. And a lot of people, I think that there's a really bad stigma with men in construction. A lot of divorces, separation from their kids and things like that. And for the fathers that are there and are very present with all the weight, from that poem that you mentioned before, that comes with the industry and kind of the blue collar life and your energy that you even have left to be a dad. How do you do that as a single dad?
Oh man, what a loaded question.
Sorry.
No,
that was
no,
that was a big one.
no, that's a good one. And honestly, like, and I like meeting doing stuff like this because it honestly, this is good for me. Like, that's a good question to ask me because I would say 95% of some of the struggle that us blue collar men and the women too, I get it. Some of them understand this, but being a single dad, working, giving it your all, trying to, carve your path in life, doing the best you can. We rarely get noticed or appreciated or asked how we're doing or asked this and that. So I'll just say I appreciate you even asking like that. Like, not that it's just a loaded question, but that's a good question for me to reflect on. The best answer is like I was actually trying to make a video earlier, and I don't know if you've struggled with this or probably some other content creators. Like, you get frustrated while you're making a video, and you're like, I'm not even gonna do that. But I have a book that I bought probably 6 years ago by Meg Meeker, and it's called "Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters." If you have a daughter, that to me is like second behind the Bible for like the best book for a father with daughters to read. It it took me months just to get through it because I would get through like the first chapter and it showed me where I had went wrong. It'd make me cry. I'm like, oh my God. But it will open your eyes to the importance of being a father to a daughter. And like, now I know it's very important to be a father to sons. I'm not minimizing that. Obviously, I don't have a son yet. Um, but being a father to daughters, and especially in today's age, like, obviously we've all seen on social media, dating is this and that. You got toxic masculine, you got women here, women there. It's a mess, like it's upside down. We'll just say that. Um, and so more than ever, the something I see is this need for us men for our daughters is to raise them healthy because I'm seeing it now so much like, okay, what is one of the biggest reasons why we have issues with crime? I mean, everything is absent fathers. Now, I haven't been able to live in the household with my wife. We, um, you know, there was nobody one hand to point of who was at fault. It was, we got married young, and there was a lot of this and that. And she was from Illinois, and wanted to move back home. And so I moved up there, and then Illinois was very challenging for somebody who grew up in Florida. The cold weather being one of those biggest challenges for me. Being away from home, and it was a new culture. A lot of people didn't understand just little things about the food, the types of foods that we like down in Florida, out in the swamps. But so I went through a lot of challenges, turned to alcohol, I bad alcoholism, and made some bad choices throughout my marriage. And it was just kind of flat and dead. And so when that ended, I had nowhere to go. I put myself in such a deep hole. So I went back home to Florida, and, was getting back on track, got with some mentors, my old youth pastor that I still talk to this day. He's like a father figure to me. Great man. He got married on his 18th birthday, and he's still married to this day. I think they're at like 48 years. So a great man to go to and get good counsel and wisdom from. I would recommend that to any man that didn't have a father like me, because I didn't grow up in a household with a dad. I had a couple males here and there and I picked up on stuff. So luckily I had male figures that I could lean to. Not all of them were quality. But find a good man that is at life where you think that's a good life. Like, that man's living right, and gain knowledge from him. Ask him to go to lunch, hang out with him, get with him as much as you can. And I actually did HVAC with that guy. He's not only a pastor still, but he runs his own HVAC company. It's pretty, he's amazing. He's the best of both worlds. He's a great blue collar worker. So yeah, my biggest thing is, I want to become that man. I want to be that man that I would want my daughters to marry. And so you have to take a long look in the mirror and take, outside wisdom from older men that have been through it, and work on becoming that man. Like, it's 2025, man. Like, we are embarking on an age of, and we haven't even seen, being a poet, like, that's kind of, to me, it's not just a writing thing. It's who I am. Like, I see things different. I internalize and see the world and through a lens that, sometimes I get frustrated with. But I'm not no prophet, but if people aren't paying attention that this next 10, 15 years, this age of mankind that we're going into, um, it's going to change drastically. We've already been seeing the self-checkouts for years, all these little things. Now we're starting to see even content creators where half of content creation is now AI, faked videos. So it's gonna be a crazy world in the next 10 years. And so a lot of people are gonna start to just forget what it is to even be human, emotions and feelings and stuff. So I don't know if I'm getting off of going down a rabbit trail from your question, but about what keeps me going. Like, I've seen the worst, I've seen the best, but I have my two daughters that remind me that, hey, one day they're going to be 30, they're going to be in their 30s, they're going to have to face this world. And so how do I want to be for them? Because they always say, and it's real cliche, but it's so true, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think that deters people, because they think, well, I'm just one person. But you're not just one person. You matter. Every individual matters to your life. Like, so if you're doing quality things, you're going to work, you're making a difference. And if you have kids, you can make a difference in those girls' life. So that's kind of like my focus towards growing. Like, they're my biggest motivators, man. And I have a vision. My book, my social medias, everything ties into an ultimate vision of a nonprofit organization, the Blue Collar Man, where I can support these men getting out of jail, financially, getting out of rehab, because we do tend to, and I can't give you an explanation of why that is 100%. And if I gave you my best reason, it'd take forever. But we do, we tend to be neurodivergent. We tend to come from, less than ideal backgrounds, and, with some traumas. And it does take a type of personality to risk your life every day and work these hours and have physical pain, just like it takes a certain personality to become a Marine. You're not, you don't just become a Marine. Like, you have to have some kind of different mindset with choosing these blue collar trades and stuff like that. So it tends to be more of your rougher crowd, and addictive personalities, or neurodivergent, who choose these lifestyles. And so I want to make an impact to show, hey man, you can still be a quality man, even if nobody really knows. Like, you don't have to break down the walls of hell with, having 1,000 people following you, or a big church, or all these big books, but just making a difference with your own life, making the right choices, staying out of jail, you know, going to work, providing for your lifestyle, hopefully a wife and children, you know, that always makes a healthy community. And obviously, being a legal citizen, that's it. I always say this: it's good for business. That's what makes a good country. It's, but it starts out in the home. It starts out you as an individual, you know. So I hope that kind of went into you. If you
No,
got
it did.
anything else,
Listen, it did. It's when you are serving a purpose and that purpose is aimed at a bullseye, it can give you all the motivation you need to, go through everything that we go through and all the weight that we carry.
that's
I do
right.
have one more question for you before we end. If there was one thing you wanted your daughters to know about you, what would it be? Got me choked up. Sorry. Listen, man, I feel you, and I'm sure they know that, especially if that's how you guys end your conversations and everything. I hope they know that. Listen, man, it's been fun. I never know what we're going to talk about when we come on here and we get going. And I always have like a map in my head about how I think the conversation's going to go. And then, it just goes off. We covered a lot, and I think we covered a lot of things that a lot of people need to hear. So I appreciate you coming on. And, one more time, Dustin, let people know where they can go find you. And like I said, I want that reel because I'm going to share it. I'll make you a collaborator, and maybe we can kickstart your Instagram a little bit. But if you're still listening, we appreciate everybody for being out there. Appreciate you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.